Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going over cards from the newly released set Lorwyn Eclipsed that I'm most excited for Commander Cube. I have a 360 card Commander Cube. That's 360 cards plus now 87 different commanders that you can draft. And I finished it about a year ago. It's been an absolute blast to draft. And I'm actually just working on and finishing a big major update for the cube, and so including definitely considering a bunch of cards from Lorwyn Eclipsed. I've been super excited about this set. Been long waiting for it for a while, and it has not disappointed. I got in a couple pre-releases with with a bunch of good friends of mine. That was a lot of fun. I'm just in love with the aesthetic of the set, and the mechanics are fantastic, and a lot of the cards I think are going to fit great into the context of my Commander Cube. So today I'm going to take you through a bit of a short walkthrough through the cube, show you kind of what's going on within it, and then go over some of the cards that I'm most intrigued and might be considering throwing into the cube for the big update. So yeah, just a real quick glance over at the cube before we get into some of the cards. As I mentioned, it's a 360 card cube. And then there's 87 different commanders that you can build between. There's the cube pool, 360 cards, and then there's a pool of commanders that you'll draft separately at the beginning of the draft. 5-card packs with 4 people at the table, so you'll end up seeing 20 of the 87 commanders in any given draft. But there's 4 representatives from each 2-color combination, and 4 representatives now from each 3-color combination, and then we have each of 1 representative for each 4-color combination. And as well as now, we're up to 87 commanders because I added in 2 different 5-color commanders people can build between. That didn't exist in the first iteration of the cube, but we got the Prismatic Bridge coming in and Kenrith, the Return King, coming in. So anyways, so the cube starts off with a 5-card pack of commanders being drafted before you end up drafting your 3 packs of 20 cards to build the rest of your deck, which is going to be a 60-card commander deck. So you draft 5 different commanders, you'll draft 60 cards from the pool a piece, so that's 240 of the 360 getting used each time, and then each player will end up building a 60-card commander deck. So people will end up using maybe about 2/3 of the cards they draft from the pool between 36 non-land cards and non-basics here and there. So, and some of the strategies supported in the cube are some of the kind of more evergreen strategies you'll see in Commander. Stuff like Spellslinger and Reanimator and big creatures / ramp strategies, +1/+1 counters, flicker, that type of stuff. So you'll see a lot of just clean evergreen designs and mechanics in the cube, and I definitely think there's some cards from Lorwyn Eclipsed that are going to fit the bill. So let's start going over some of them. All right, first up we have Twilight Diviner. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this one, but I think she's really sweet. 2 and a black for a 3/3. When she enters, surveil 2, and then get this: whenever 1 or more other creatures you control enter, if they entered or were cast from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of one of them. Only triggers once each turn. Talk about an all-star type of card for any type of graveyard matters strategy or reanimator. I've noticed that in the first iteration of the cube, there's definitely we need a little bit more ways to fill up the graveyard as well, and so I think she fits the bill great here, and I think she has a high chance of coming into the cube and pulling good weight. Love that even if her floor is Surveil 2, which Surveil 2 I think is always going to feel good no matter what deck you're in. And my goodness, if you're copying anything that you're reanimating that's worth reanimating, she's getting it done. That's a lot of value, and I think she has a high likelihood to be coming into the cube. All right, next up we have Lockmare. I actually ended up with 2 of these between my 2 pre-releases. One of my decks I splashed it for, another I didn't. But I actually thought the card was really sweet as a potential for Commander Cube, since we have a pretty heavily supported +1/+1 counter synergies going on in the cube. And you might say, oh, she has -1/-1 counters. I mean, for her purposes, it doesn't really matter. She ends up holding a bunch of 1/1 counters, which she definitely could in the context of this Commander Cube. I think she'd be pulling out a lot of weight. I mean, just a constant card draw outlet, 2 mana, remove a counter, draw a card. That's really nice. And honestly, again, if you're able to stack up counters on her and be paying 3 to tap down and stun key threats on the board, I actually think that could be super worthwhile. And for the initial investment, only 2 mana, she doesn't ask a lot, and I definitely think she has a good chance of, maybe getting a shot at some point, and could pull weight in the +1/+1 counter strategy in particular. And the only thing I will say is that I do definitely like cards that fit into multiple of the strategies that are going on within the cube, and she might be a little narrowed with only maybe fitting in well within the +1/+1 counter strategy. But I also think that, her floor is reasonably high, and, I think you can do other interesting stuff with her as well. But yeah, Lockmare is pretty sweet. Alright, I'm sure you guys have seen this one already. Morning Tide's Light. This is actually, I think, one of the first cards I even saw spoiled from Lorwyn Eclipsed, or at least saw the art, the beautiful Mark Poole art spoiled. But if you haven't seen it, 3 and a white for sorcery. Exile any number of target creatures. At the beginning of the next end step, return those cards to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control until your next turn. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Exile Morning Tide's Light. So there's a lot of powerful card, just I think, even just as it reads. The text, until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. It's a very powerful line of text, and honestly, in that respect, it could end up being too powerful for a Commander Cube setting, and not super broken. But I did just cut Teferi's Protection from the cube in light of not creating situations that are kind of unbeatable. But I do think it's really sweet as a potential card, in the flicker strategies or any combat matter strategies. I like its ability to clear the way. So I do think it's really versatile. It's really sweet. Could definitely slide into multiple strategies. I think the one thing that turns me off a little bit is the, kind of unbeatable fog effect that can feel a little, Teferi's Protection, for example, ended up feeling a little unfun in certain game scenarios, which is why it ended up getting cut in light of Dawn's Truce. So, but nonetheless, Morning Tide's Light is definitely a sweet one. Definitely at least considering it for the cube. Not sure if we'll make it into this update, but it's on my radar. Another card on my radar, speaking of, Mirror Form. I would assume by now you've probably seen this card or maybe heard tales of it, but if you haven't, I mean, this is just Commander in a nutshell right here. 4 blue for an instant. Each non-land permanent you control becomes a copy of target non-aura permanent. So, if you have any way of creating a lot of rectangles on your board between tokens or, creature tokens, treasure, whatever, name it, and you can turn this into, turn 7, 8, 10 things into a copy of whatever you choose. I think that's going to create some pretty game-ending, zany scenarios, especially in the context of Commander Cube, and I'm definitely very interested in giving it a shot. I feel like it's just probably the type of card that's going to create a lot of laughs, hopefully. I'm not sure if it's going to be coming in this update, but off the bat, I mean, I was just taking a quick look through the cube and trying to think of different things that we could be copying with Mirror Form. I think Tendershoot Dryad was one of the first ones I saw where I'm like, oh geez Louise, I mean, she makes the army that you need to turn into stuff and then turn it all into Tendershoot Dryads, I think, and hopefully win the game from there. Massacre Worm, I think, was another fun one that I had pointed out where it's like, I mean, geez, if you make a bunch of Massacre Worms and then just all of a sudden be like, yeah, lose a creature, take 20, I think that would be kind of wild. Or, I'm a big Inferno Titan fan, so if I could get a board of 8 to 10 Inferno Titans and just get in and spread a bunch of damage for the win, that sounds pretty fun to me. So, yeah, the ton of other examples here, but just wanted to point a few out. And yeah, Mirror Form, I think, is just such a zany commander in a nutshell kind of card that I might be giving a shot in the cube soon. We'll see. Okay, this one is a wild one. Soul Immolation, 3 red sorcery as additional cost to cast it, Blight X, less than the greatest toughness amongst creatures you control. So put as many 1/1 counters as you can on your biggest creature or whatever creature you want, and then have Soul Immolation deal X damage to each opponent and each creature they control. So kind of a Chandra's Ignition variant. We are already playing Chandra's Ignition in the cube. And the card is really amazing, and so definitely Soul Immolation caught my eye as well, and yeah, I think it's really sweet. I like I do like asymmetrical board wipes, things that can progress the game forward instead of just slowing it down. One of the big themes in this cube update was cutting a decent number of the board wipes, especially the ones that were symmetrical and really backbreaking for the whole board, like Farewell, for example, typically adds a lot of time onto each game. So I think something like Soul Immolation is actually kind of sweet and can definitely create game-winning scenarios for the person casting it. That being said, I'm not sure if I need, we need more red board wipes right now, but it's definitely at the top of the list of ones I'd be considering giving a shot in the cube. I like the different ways you could probably get creative with it, and hopefully create some big, blasting, game-winning scenarios with it. So it's on my radar. Okay, next up we have one of the hallmark cards of the set, I would say. I think maybe was it the first card spoiled? Bitter Bloom Bearer, a great callback to the iconic Bitter Blossom, which we are running in the cube. I'm a big fan of the card. I think it's iconic. I love the original art and all that. And I think Bitter Bloom Bearer is very sweet as well. Black for a 1/1 flash flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, lose 1 life and create a 1/1 Bloom Black fairy token with flying, a la Bitter Blossom. So definitely, as it wouldn't surprise you if I'm running Bitter Blossom, I'm definitely considering Bitter Bloom Bearer. Though I'm not actually sure if she's going to make it in this very next update. I do feel like the cube has enough token generating strategy or token generators already right now. And I think overall Bitter Blossom is probably a little better than Bitter Bloom Bearer. I think Bearer has definitely upsides to her being a creature herself, being able to hold equipment right away, maybe get in faster and all that, but also a lot more vulnerable to removal. So I do think she's really sweet, definitely in the considering pile, yeah, Bitter Bloom Bearer for you. Okay, next up we have a card that I actually think might be too good for my Commander Cube setting, but I think it's really sweet. And I'm definitely thinking about it. Dream Harvest. 7 mana Dimir sorcery. Each opponent exiles from the top of their library until they've exiled cards with total mana value 5 or greater. You cast all those cards without paying their mana cost. Yeah, again, talking about commander cards in a nutshell. I mean, this is it right here, and I think in my cube setting, which probably has a higher mana value than your average commander game overall, I'm sure this card is probably getting 18 to 20 plus mana value worth of stuff each time you cast it. And the format is like, at least it has been slow enough to be able to cast something like Dream Harvest, and I definitely think it's really sweet. Obviously it's never going to look quite the same every time you cast it in one sense. On the other hand, I do think it's like so strong that if it resolves, it's kind of like a 7 mana I win the game button, and I think those can be fun in the short term, but get cheesy in the long term. But I am honestly still very interested in maybe giving this card a shot at some point. Not sure if it will be in this this next iteration of the cube, but definitely in the considering pile. I think it's sweet, and again, I think it'll look different every time, and I do like that aspect of it. But I think it could be too strong. 7 mana to just create a just untenable board state probably, especially with all the board wipes that I've been cutting lately. A little wary of it, but interested in maybe giving it a whirl at some point. Alright, I've got a red one and a spicy one for you. Lava Leaper. I don't know if anybody played with this in the pre-release. I did, actually. I had it in my first deck I built, which was an aggressive black-red deck, and I think this creature is really sweet. 4 mana red creature, 4/4. All creatures have haste. Whenever a player taps a basic land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land produced. So, mana doubler in many situations, and I think this card is sweet for red in my cube. I'm trying to up the creature count a little bit, in this most recent update. Well, you can see red has got one of the lower creature counts in the cube, but red's a Spellslinger got a lot of love in this newest red update. So there's a lot of sorceries and stuff like that. But I think Lava Leaper can pull weight in actually many types of the deck in the cube. I love the line of text. All creatures have haste. That's a really just like proactive, push the game forward kind of ability that I've been looking for a lot of in this newest cube update. And then similarly, a symmetrical mana doubler I think also can create some pretty big explosive game states and kind of push the game closer to an end. So I think this could be a good shout to maybe cut a sorcery or something and get Lava Leaper in as another red 4-drop that's kind of aggressive, proactive, and probably can create some pretty wild board states. And especially if you're in any red X token strategy in the queue, which there's definitely a fair share of. Really powerful line of text having, Concordant Crossroads stuck to a creature. So I'm definitely very interested in giving him a shot. I think he's really sweet. He pulled a lot of weight in my pre-release deck, and maybe he'll pull some additional weight in the Commander Cube. Alright, and last but not least, we have Aurora Awakener. This was another card that I actually got the chance to splash in one of my pre-release decks, and This card's an absolute house. I didn't even know about this card before the pre-release. I had seen a good number of the spoilers, but also I got to experience some of the set totally unspoiled and opened this guy, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm splashing for him. And the more I thought about it, the more I was actually intrigued in giving him a shot in Commander Cube. I feel like he would fit the bill in a lot of decks, but he's a 7 mana 7/7 trampler with a vivid enter ETB effect. When this creature enters, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X permanent cards, where X is the number of colors among the permanents you control. Put any number of those permanents onto the battlefield. Put the rest of the reveal cards on the bottom in any random order. So yeah, I mean, and it's interesting in the context of Commander Cube because, like I said, 40 of the 87 commanders are 2-color commanders. So I feel, even green containing decks might not be that interested in something like Aurora Awakener. But I don't know. I mean, 7 mana 7/7 trample, flop 2 permanents into play is not the worst thing. But I think once you get to 3 colors, any green containing 3-color plus deck that's able to consistently vivid him for 3, I think he starts to get powerful even at that point. And that's not even getting into the 4 green containing 4-color commanders. I think any one of them would be stoked to be able to cast this guy or get him out and get 4 permanents. And then certainly either of the 2 5-color commanders we just added, I think this card would be a slam dunk in those decks. And I think he supports a lot of strategies. I think the landfall strategy would be happy to have him. Any flicker strategy, goodness. I mean, if you're flickering this guy, I think you're winning that game. Big creatures and ramp strats. Anyways, I think this guy's just a house. So the more and more I thought about him, the more I wanted to fit him into the cube. So I think he's actually one of the more likely cards to be coming into the Commander Cube update here. And yeah, I'm excited to try him out. But yeah, so those are some of the cards that I'm most excited for purposes of my Commander Cube from Lorwyn Eclipsed. This set has just been amazing for many reasons, and I enjoyed myself in the pre-releases. Definitely some cards I'm thinking about for just, of course, my regular Commander decks, but a lot of these cards got me thinking, about maybe finding a slot for them in the Commander Cube. If you want to see more stuff about my Commander Cube, let me know in the comments below. Drop a like on this video if you made it this far. Really appreciate you watching. And yeah, thanks again for stopping by the channel. I'll definitely have more budget Commander content coming up in the future. But definitely also interested in making more content on Commander Cube. So keep an eye out for that as well. Thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you in the next video.